Well, thank you. I guess this will be the boring part. I should stand in front. Thank you. I guess this will be the most boring part of the presentation. And it's intimidating to speak after Prof. Because he knows what he's talking about. And coming right after me is George. Well, we're just going to explore the bounds of free speech from the legal dimension. And let me just say this right off the bat. Yes, the repeal of criminal libel was great in 2001. It marked a good uhuru moment for the freedom of expression. But I'm here to tell you that there are 40 other ways in which your expression can send you to court. And if you don't know them, you might think you're expressing you're expressing your right to free speech, free expression, free press, and could end up in a lot of trouble. I'll go through the definitions quickly. You know what freedom of speech is. It's your right to speak without censorship or restriction. It's linked to the freedom of the press to print or publish without license. Expression generally refers to all of them: speech, press, religion, assembly. That's the right to speak. Does Ghana have constitutional protections of these? Yes, since 1969, every Ghanaian constitution has provided protections of speech, expression, and the press. And 1969 was really a reaction to 1960. Now, you might know that the 1960 Constitution provided for some of these freedoms, but only provided them in the presidential oath. And so in the famous or infamous case of Ria Koto, the Supreme Court said, well, since it's just an oath, it is a personal declaration by the president, it's not part of the law, it represents a goal, it does not represent a legal requirement. If he doesn't comply with the rights and freedoms in his oath, let the people vote him out. And so when you got to the 1969 Constitution, we were showing that we really wanted these rights. And people must always go back and read the preamble to the 1969 Constitution. It is very interesting. They said, we the chiefs and people of Ghana, having experienced a regime of tyranny, remembering with gratitude the heroic struggle against oppression, having solemnly resolved never again to allow ourselves to be subjected to a like regime, determined to secure for all of us a constitution which shall establish the sovereignty of the people and the rule of law as the foundation of society, and guarantee, and the first thing they said the constitution will guarantee is freedom of thought, expression, and religion. And so our constitution provides, and this is the third constitution after that, that all persons shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression, which shall include the freedom of the press and other media, freedom of thought, conscience, belief, which shall include academic freedom. So that is guaranteed. It's in the Constitution. But there are limitations. The same Constitution that gives says that, however, there can be a law that contains a provision reasonably required for the purpose of safeguarding the people of Ghana against the teaching or propagation of a doctrine which exhibits or encourages disrespect for the nationhood of Ghana, the national symbols and emblems, or incites hatred against other members of community, etc., etc. There are limits to the rights of to free speech. The Constitution itself provides for it. The entire Chapter 12 is dedicated to freedom of the press. Yet it says that that freedom is subject to laws reasonably required in the interest of national security, public order, public morality, and for the purpose of protecting the reputations, rights, and freedoms of other persons. Right in our Constitution, we are given the rights with the right hand, and the left hand says, but there are limitations. No rights are absolute. They are subject to limitations. And I'm here to announce and to remind all of us that free speech, free expression, and free press may yet have civil and criminal consequences. We can never forget that. Lest we forget, we used to have the criminal libel regime, which could send you to jail for libeling someone, whether negligent or intentional, or seditious libel. Lest we forget, we didn't just repeal that, we repealed 4 dangerous cousins of criminal libel. And we'll look at those dangerous cousins. 1, defaming or insulting the president. Now, I said this and got into trouble in Ghana, that insulting the president is not a crime. It used to be between 1969 and 2001. We removed it by law. So literally, he's insultable. Without going to jail. It's a moral wrong, but I'll show you how you could still end up in trouble for insulting the president, and then publishing a false report that injures Ghana or Ghana's government's reputation. That was also repealed. It was a crime. Oh, two other dangerous cases was that the president could prohibit your organization by executive instruments, and could prohibit publishing or importing newspapers who, if he thinks that the contents are contrary to public interest, etc., etc. These awesome powers were repealed. I call them the 4 dangerous cousins of criminal libel. All of these were repealed. But there's a curious thing, Prof. They're insulting the president. Guess when we passed it? The NLC in 1969, just before they handed over power to the PP government, in 1969, they felt the need to protect not the prime minister, but the president. Ghana's history is very interesting. If you don't read Ghana's history, you won't understand. Look, you won't understand anything that's going on today. But I just wanted to point that out. And indeed, the prohibiting of organizations was also in 1969, just before they handed over to the Progress Party government. Who were they trying to prohibit? We all know. Now, look at this. Criminal libel was dangerous. And I like this case, I versus Frimpong, because it involved the father of our friend Koku Bakum, who is Mr. Interceptor, and whose father intercepted a letter that had been written to insulting him. The letter was posted to London. Somebody picked it, gave it to Mr. Kofi Bakum. The person was tried and convicted of criminal libel. He wrote the insult and posted it to London. It came back to Ghana, intercepted by the father of Interceptor, and the person went to jail. I've given you, look, one thing. I've put these presentations in PDF. I've authorized CTFM to give it to anybody who wants it. Please, if you're a media organization and you get it, show it to your lawyers. If you're a media organization and you don't have a lawyer, you're already in trouble. But show it to your lawyers and ask whether this is true. There's no time to go through these cases, but you'll find out that you could be in a lot of trouble for what you said. And one thing about publication is that under normal libel laws, publication must be to a third party. Under criminal libel, publication to the party himself was enough publication. We are moving along, we can't wait for this. But interesting people who went in, the pioneer accused the border guards of bribery. He was convicted. Kofi Bedu, spokesman, said a judge was unfit for office. He was lucky because the judge who conducted the trial made a technical error, and so he got out. Lest we forget. And we cannot forget that Tommy Thompson trilogy of cases, where the Court of Appeal held that criminal libel could be committed against a private person, which was indeed the law. And the 2 Supreme Court decisions that making false statements likely to injure Ghana was an acceptable exception to freedom of speech. And criminal libel was an acceptable exception to freedom of speech. The Supreme Court decided that, majority decision. But it was in the face of this that the law got changed. Lest we forget, not all attention or speech has been decriminalized, ladies and gentlemen. And that what you express in speech, writing, conduct, even singing, I'll show to you, could be criminal. I'm not here to scare you. I'm just here to tell you what is there. Then you can get information. Just say, I'm giving you information. You can decide that you ignore it, but at least you know. Then you can count the cost and the consequences. Threats. First thing to look at. Threats include threatening somebody with libel. That if you say, I'm going to write this story about you, it's a threat. Offer to abstain from carrying out that if you don't, unless you do this, I'll publish, or I won't publish if you do this. It's a threat. It doesn't matter whether the threat will be carried by you or by another person against him or another person. And the method of conveying the threat includes words, writing, direct, indirect, or in any other manner. Now, threat runs through a lot of offenses. If you threaten with intent to put another in fear of unlawful harm, it is your right to speak. But if it's a threat because the person is being threatened with unlawful harm, it's a crime. Now, even in rioting is where 5 or more people gather to execute a common purpose with unlawful violence. Violence is defined to include a threat or offer of force, harm, or mischief. So your threat could amount to violence. And so your speech or your expression could send you to jail for rioting. Robbery is using a threat of assault or harm to overcome resistance in stealing. Extortion is where you use any other form of threat to take property from another person. That's extortion. And so it is your speaking. But if the speaking or your expression amounts to a threat, you could be guilty of any of these offenses. Quickly, nuisance, noise, and breach of the peace. And nuisance in a public place or an open space is a crime. A nuisance is defined as wrongfully interfering with another person's enjoyment of his or her land. And so if you are having loud meetings in your house and they are disturbing your neighbor, that party you have every Friday night is nuisance. It's a jailable offense. It's a punishable offense. And so your expression, your right to have a party, or your right to get up on your roof and shout prayers at 4 a.m. every dawn could get you into trouble. Your right to have a megaphone to preach around people's houses at 4 a.m. could get you into trouble because it's a nuisance in a public place. Free speech. Making loud or unseeming noise in a manner that will cause annoyance or disturbance in a town. There's silence in the room. People are beginning to see their sins and their crimes. Right? And especially when you've been warned to desist and you don't. If you're an occupier of a house and you allow people to assemble to beat, play, or dance to musical instruments, so if you allow your church, the brass band into your house, people are saying, Charlie. Today, I'm just here. I said 40, right? We are going through the 40 quickly. Let's continue. If you persist in beating or playing a musical instrument or making any noise within a 300 radius of any court. So before you make your noise, check whether there's a court within 300 yards radius. Beating a drum with intent to challenge or provoke any other person or to insult a person. You know you can use a talking drum to insult somebody. Yes, that's a crime. So your right to play drums. The drums cannot say, Goku Mensa, Utisa Adoi. Okay, we've done that. Beating or playing a musical instrument in a town between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. without license.
Hey.
So that church next door, they can't have all night. Then I says, "Ow." Your next door neighbor can get you arrested for your all night. Unless you produce a license from the district assembly to make noise. Publicly nuisance and public abuse. If you use threatening, abusive, insulting words or behavior with intent to provoke the breach of the peace. So insulting the president directly may be an offense. But if you do it in public to provoke a breach of the peace, the insults can send it to court. So we repeal that. But they are cousins. We repeal that and the 4 dangerous cousins. I'm putting to you that there are 40 other cousins that can bite you, relatives, hanging around waiting for you, just that it's hardly ever employed. If you publish or reproduce, and this is the one that is causing trouble for everybody. If you publish or reproduce, 1, a statement, rumor, or report. 2, that is likely to cause either fear or alarm to the public or disturb public peace. And 3, know or have reason to believe that it is false. That's what people are calling fear and alarm. What are you saying? Now, how do we define false? The law says that it is false. It doesn't say it is true. It is not false only if you prove that before you propagated it, you took steps to validate or to verify it. That's why I also infamously said that for all the prophets, if you say that there's going to be catastrophe in Ghana, and it's proved that it is likely to panic or breach public peace, then you have to prove that it is not false. How is it not false? I'm sorry, it came to me in a dream. It's not a very valuable proof. And this applies to all of us, especially those of us in journalism. Right? I'm not here to scare you. I'm only saying what is there. You can decide that I have seen information, but I won't obey it. Then at least, or that I've seen it, I think I can skirt around it. I'm just providing information. It's my time. When it's my time, just tell me, I'll stop.
Okay.
Now, if you fight or quarrel, or abet one, or if you make loud and seeming noise, or you use a violent or abusive term of reproach, so all those insults that insult people's mothers in their nether regions, you could go to jail. Just that well. This is Ghana. If you make a defamatory or insulting writing or object, or you sing a scurrilous or abusive song with intent to irritate another person, or you are involved in a riotous, indecent, or disorderly or insulting act that annoys another, all these are offenses. Interference with court proceedings. If you use threats or in any way hinder, interrupt, or disturb court proceedings. So if you're arrested and sent to court, and whilst you're in court, you are singing songs. Yeah, so it's a second offense. That's a second offense. All right? If you insult or use opprobrious or menacing acts while in the presence of the court, if you publish anything concerning pending court proceedings or a party with intent to excite popular prejudice for or against the party, you know about civil contempt. There's an aspect of civil contempt that is a crime in the criminal law. So if there are pending provisions, the court provisions said, this man, he's a thief, you go right, he should lose the case. He said, you committed a crime. You have your freedom of speech, but there are limitations. Know it so you know how to live. Electoral offenses, how is it relevant? If you attempt to prevent somebody from voting by a threat, it's a crime. If you intimidate another person, now I like this. If you intimidate, it's defined as endeavoring to influence the conduct of a voter in respect of election by a threat of an evil consequence. Please, those are not my words, it's in the law. So if you go to a person and say, if you vote, it's win an evil consequence offense. Or I'll take you to the malam offense. In other words, if I give you money and make you swear that if you don't vote for me, you will die the next day. Evil consequence, threat, offense, jail, or maybe fine. I'm moving quickly along. Indecency and obscenity. Wow, there's freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Who determines what is indecent? What does morality have to do with the law? Well, let's see. If you publish or sell an obscene book, if you fix something on your wall, which is obscene, an indecent picture, printing or writing, or even if you give it to another person to post it. So I do the obscene writing, then I give it to Samens. That Samens put it on CTFM's wall. I am guilty, Samens is guilty. Or singing a profane, indecent, or obscene song. I haven't thought about any university in Ghana. I haven't spoken about any halls of residence, but there you have it. Profane, indecent, or obscene song. Advertisements of venereal diseases. Not just that. Or sexual infirmity, or preparations claiming aphrodisiac powers. It's all indecent. So you see how many of your newspapers should be in jail by now, and your radio stations. Yeah. Something power. Nah. Unless the Ministry of Health has approved of the advert. Willfully and indecently exposing your body in a public place or in the public view with intent to insult any other person. And so you know that it's possible that one of the highest forms of insult, I understand, could be going before the person and exposing yourself. Offense. Then I say, so what about the hand? That is usually exposed. So that can be, this one, right? But I get into all kinds of debates with myself about some of these things. Other conduct, quickly. So I told you, insulting the president per se is not a crime, but insulting a chief is a crime. So you can say what you want about the president. You may get away with it. But if you say that about the little chief, some substitute crime. Insulting or threatening the national flag or emblem. So I wonder what happens when you bend. You can bend the American flag. Don't try that with Ghana flag. Criminal trespass is defined to include entering my land in an insulting manner, or having been allowed onto my land, behave in an insulting way. You are in criminal trespass. Are your eyes being opened? Okay. Now, there's also the use of threatening, abusing, and insulting language on a peace officer. So you can say, you are an idiot. But if you say, Papa Koti, you're an idiot, you're in trouble. So you can say it to me. You can't say it to the police. So when I said the president could, not that the president could insult it, that insulting the president is a crime, somebody wrote a banner headline. One of them was, can I insult Ace Ankomah? The another one said, Ace Ankomah is an educated idiot. And I said, oh, you can only say that about me. If I were a policeman, you'd be in jail the next day. But that's the law, and I present it. Do what you want with it, okay? Publishing a journal or newspaper advert, including fortune-telling, palmistry, astrology, or any other subtle craft, device, seeking or calculate or likely to deceive or impose on an individual. There, the editor, publisher, proprietor, and printer are all liable. So palmistry, fortune-telling, Astrology. Isn't there a right to freedom of religion? Yeah, but our law says this is an exception. We haven't tested it in the Supreme Court. But even that right to expression has limitations. Listen to this. Publicly offering a reward for stolen items and saying that it's on a no questions asked or no arrest made basis. So if somebody steals my car and I come to CTFM, they put an advert out that if you return the car, no questions asked. Crime. Me and CTFM. Crime. Then if you offer to refund okay, in case you have bought my car, bring it back, I'll refund the money to you. Crime. The ums and ahs in the room are getting worrying. So you are interrupting my interruption. Thank you. Other conduct. Being drunk and disorderly in a public place. You can be drunk, but you can't be drunk and disorderly. So your right to get drunk is limited because when you are drunk, you must go quickly through the stages of drunkenness into comatose. If you stop at jocos or lacrimose, you could be in trouble. All right? I like this. Behaving irreverently, indecently, or insulting. Being drunk or whatever. Behaving irreverently, indecently, or insultingly near a funeral or public burial ground during the burial of a body. Basically, you can do that nonsense in your house. Don't take it to when we are burying a human body. And actually, behaving irreverently in church or a mosque is also a crime. So if in that church they serve God this way, and you go with dancing, if it's irreverent, you could. Okay, I have to end. Fixing or attempting to fix a placard, paper, or thing on a building without permission. So you can go on your demonstration, but your demonstration saying, I support e-levy, you can't put your placard on my wall without my permission. Offense. You have the right to express, but you can't express on my wall without my consent. Right, I'm going to end quickly. If you write a letter for an illiterate person and you don't state your name, or the letter doesn't convey what the illiterate person wanted to say, it's a crime. But this was more interesting. And forget about the Telegram person. If you use another person's name to sign a petition, crime. 40 ways in which you could still go to jail for expression. That's what I'm presenting to you. I'm going to end with this. Taking an unlawful oath. What is an unlawful oath? That I will commit or abet a crime. That I'll conceal a design to commit a crime. That I'll prevent the discovery of a crime. Or I'll conceal the existence of an association of persons that want to commit a crime. So the people who commit a crime, you see them, then they make you swear an oath that you won't tell anybody. It's an unlawful oath. The two of you could go to jail for it. But that's the criminal part. Don't forget that there's still the civil part of defamation. And defamation is where you say something that ridicules a person or lowers him in the estimation of right-thinking members of society. I know that almost every media house has been sued for defamation before. And so you know what it is. I've given you a definition of it. Then we have to deal with contempt. Civil contempt is when you disobey a court order or to do or abstain for something. So if you go to court and the court grants an injunction against you and you defy it, that is civil contempt. But there's also criminal contempt. One is in the face of the court. And I must say this to journalists. You can't interrupt court proceedings or record, film, photograph, or sketch in court without the court's permission. Your freedom of sketching ends at the door of the court, except the court has given permission. You could be in contempt. Second one, contempt outside the court, and that's where they normally catch you. Publishing things that interfere or disrupt the administration of justice, including publications that prejudice a fair trial, prejudge, preempt issues, scandalize, or otherwise lower the court's authority. That is why there are some things I won't talk about today, because I know the thing is pending in court. If you ask me a question about treason, I won't answer you, because what I say may prejudge something that is going on in court. Be careful. If the matter is pending in court, it is a dangerous thing to fall into the hands of the law. Don't set yourself up for it. My concluding thought is actually from the same Republic versus Tomitonson decision, a statement by Justice Kpegah, and I'll say this and end. He says, there is a need for a meeting point between individual and societal rights for harmony. For while an unbridled insistence on and enforcement of personal rights have the grave potential of leading to anarchy, so also has a similar insistence on enforcement of societal rights, the potential of undermining the democratic values of a society. So we must always perform a balancing act. Your rights and freedoms as against societal values. And you must determine where the weights fall, and with this information, bear the consequences. This script is available. Contact CTFM. I've authorized them to give it to anybody by email or whatever process. Keep it at your elbow. Read it and say, this is nonsense. I'm still going to do it. At least I'd have done my job. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.